Now the unique style of getting the bill passed through Rajya Sabha was followed, and it was declared by the speaker that the law is passed because he found that there was more loud in support of the passing of law than the voice in opposition of that law, and that is how the law got passed, and it became the active law. Now see, the due process of law, what it indicates, it indicates that every piece of statute or every piece of legislation is not a law unless it is through the procedure which is just, fair, and reasonable. Now, when we apply this to this passing of law of agricultural law, can we say that this passes the test of reasonableness or the test of due process of law? The answer should be no, because when the opposition is there in picture and when it is demanding that let there be regular process of following passing the bill, and that was not acceded to, uniquely, unprecedentedly this new style was resorted to pass the law. And this is example of recent times, that as to how the due process of law can be employed to challenge the validity of such a law which is not passed through the procedure which is fair, just, and reasonable, because such a procedure cannot be said to be just, fair, and reasonable. Now this is one example, this is one aspect of the due process of law. Now when the law has come into effect, whether such a law is just, fair, and reasonable, that is the another aspect of due process of law. Now in order to see whether the law is just, fair, and reasonable, and then whether, another third aspect is whether the procedural aspect that have been laid down in that law are also just, fair, and reasonable. So there comes the whether there is a compliance while the action is taken by the government, or when the act is implemented, whether there is a substantial compliance to the provisions of the act. Now to understand this, we would like to take example of a trial, a simple trial that takes place in the court. Now we have a CRPC, and in CRPC, as per the basically Constitution of India, every person is entitled to a trial, fair trial. Okay, and nobody can be punished without a fair trial. Nobody can be punished without a guilt being proved beyond reasonable doubt. So for that we have a CRPC, and CRPC lays down the procedure. Now when a person is prosecuted, he is brought in a court, a charge is framed and it is read over to him, he will deny it, and then the court and the prosecution will go on to hold a trial. What is the trial? Now trial is giving him opportunity of defense, that is cross examination of the witnesses, etc., and argument in support of his argument. Whatever comes against him has to be explained to him so that he can give explanation, etc. So these are all substantial provisions. But suppose these procedural aspects or the procedural things have not been substantially complied with, what would be the effect? That would be again unfair trial and not the compliance of the statutory provision. So there has to be not only the fair procedure, or not only that the procedure has to be fair, just, and reasonable, but there has to be compliance of such a procedure in fairness and justness and reasonableness. So these are the outcomes of the Article 14 read into Article 19 read into Article 14, and then it becoming the part of Article 21. So the idea of testing something on the ground of reasonableness is starting in Article 19, then getting to Article 14, and then becoming part of Article 21, and that is how this triangle is complete. And when this triangle is there, now you have several grounds available to you when you want to question validity of any law. When a client comes to you and you are in process of making out a draft, making out a challenge, a ground. So first you have to see whether this law is passed through the procedure which is just, fair, and reasonable. That means you can here question the even procedure that was applied while passing the law, number one. Number two, whether the provisions of the statutes are also just, fair, and reasonable. And for that, of course, you need to see the standards of the country in which such a law is made, and that I will explain as to why it is necessary. And the rights are actually evolved in the country where the law is made. So what may be said in other country may not be exactly applicable to all country in all the circumstances. So therefore, what is the reasonable in the context of our own society has to be looked into. And then, of course, whether there is a substantial compliance of all these things. Now, to explain this, there is a latest example from Singapore. People staying in Singapore, and particularly Tamili people staying in Singapore, used to do one festival. And in that festival, they used to carry out a long procession, and then all baja, gaja, band, etc. used to take place. And the government of Singapore declared that this was a nonsense to the other people, and therefore it will not permit it. So these kind of processions or rallies should be stopped. Some individual went to court questioning the action on the part of the government or the law of the government, which is banning that practice of procession. And he questioned that it is the religious practice that we have been doing for the years together, and therefore the government has no business to prevent me from carrying out my religious practice. And the Singapore court, the apex court of Singapore, actually decided in favor of that individual, saying that if it is a religious practice, then government has no business to interfere into that, and it declared that the people belonging to that particular group are entitled to carry out their procession, because they find this, they feel that it is the religious practice. And while doing this, court made very important observation. Court declared, or court said, the Singapore court said that when we say that this particular procession is a part of Hinduism, we are not saying that it may be or it should be the part of the Hindu religion wherever it is existing in the entire globe. We are not saying whether this forms an essential part of Hinduism in India. We are only saying, and what we are holding is only limited to our country. If the people in our country, in Singapore, have been doing this for the years together, then it should be taken only for them. And we do not mean, or we should not be taken to mean that we are declaring that this particular procession is a part or essential practice of the Hindu religion. So what is relevant, or what is what can be the exact position of particular practice or particular position has to be tested in the context of their own country. So this is one example which explains that how the rights are evolving. So the religious right was evolving in that country in that fashion, and then the same may not be positioned in our country. So therefore, this golden triangle, coming back to India, is now giving us a very clear picture. The first picture with clarity is that the procedure established by law are now, of course, taken to be the due process. And the theory behind this is that, now again, let me take you to the making of our constitution. The words that we used in our Indian constitution, that procedure established by law, were actually borrowed from the Japanese constitution. Okay. Now, Japanese constitution was made after the Second World War, and that was made by the Japan with the help of the American scholars who drafted the American constitution, or who are involved into Bill of Rights, etc. So these very American scholars employed the words procedure established by law in the Japanese constitution, and those very words we have adopted or borrowed in our Indian constitution. Therefore, actually, the procedure established by law mean nothing but only due process of law. This is one theory in support of this kind of interpretation. Therefore, now, when our courts have held that Article 14, 19, and 21 are the same part, same position of each other, then that means the due process of law is not only applicable to the liberty or personal liberty and life, but also to other rights which are covered under Article 19 and Article 14 also. If any other fundamental right is covered by Article 19 or Article 14, then if the law that takes away such a right covered by either Article 14 or 19 can be also questioned on the ground of violation or non following the due process of law, or that law is without due process. That means the government will have to justify in the court that the procedure that was laid down for making such a law was followed in the first place. Then there was a substantial compliance of that procedure, and that procedure provided by constitution for making such a law is also just, fair and reasonable in the first place. Then the provisions of that act are also just, fair and reasonable. And then of course any action in exercise of the powers of such a law is also questioned. Then that action is also just, fair and reasonable, and there is a due compliance. So the due process is applicable at the time of making law, at the time of interpreting or implementing that law, and also the actions which are taken under the particular law. Now, dear friend, these concepts are now so evolving with the day on day. Now, recently, as a result of this, the due process, the Honorable Supreme Court exactly used the word due process in recent time. That is a case where the procedure that was followed in Supreme Court while hearing the review cases was questioned, because the Supreme Court rules provided that the review petitions will not be heard in the open court, and they would be decided into the chamber. And this was the provision of the Supreme Court rules itself. So the people challenge this on the ground that at least in the cases where somebody is sentenced to death and the petition or the appeal against the sentence to death has been decided negatively, and the person is filing a review petition, at least such a person should be given open hearing in the open court. And for that, the Supreme Court rules which prohibit such open hearing in review are to be declared as unconstitutional. Then Justice Rohinton Nariman, he said that the non-hearing or the absence of the open hearing in the open court is actually arbitrariness, and when particularly when somebody sentenced to death is entitled to be heard. And he read the concept of arbitrariness, the manifest arbitrariness, and he said Article 21 when it is read together with Article 14, where article where it is well clear that arbitrariness is antithesis to equality. When such arbitrariness is there and it is manifest that somebody sentenced to death and is not heard also, and that manifest arbitrariness can be a ground to set aside the law. And Rohinton Nariman allowed the petitions, and then thereafter in Supreme Court now the practice has started that in all such review petitions in death sentence cases are to be heard in the open court, whereas in other all cases the review petitions are heard even today also in the chambers, not in the open court like we do in the high court or the tribunal or any other court in our country. So see, this due process of law is evolving new concepts and theories and rights. Now recently, even in the case of Shahara Bano, when triple talaq was the law that made triple talaq provision or permitted triple talaq provision was challenged. Again, this doctrine of due process was resorted to by the Supreme Court while allowing the case and declaring that the law which permits such kind of triple talaq is unconstitutional. Okay, there also the concept of arbitrariness was read into Article 21, Article 14, and all these things. Now thereafter, even in an important case of Puttuswamy, that is right of privacy. The right of privacy is not expressly read into any of the articles of Constitution of India. You will not find direct word like privacy, right to privacy, and where from this right to privacy came. Similarly, there was a case in American Constitution, and there action was one action of the government was challenged. The government made a law permitting the police to intrude into the privacy and your home and to find out the contraceptives. The search for the contraceptives was taken very serious matter of intrusion into privacy, and this was challenged in the American Constitution and American Supreme Court, and American Supreme Court upheld such a right of privacy, that such kind of search for the contraceptives is actually intrusion into the right of privacy. Then the government and of course the critics of or in support of the government said that this kind of interpretation is actually wrong, because even the American Constitution do not speak of the privacy. Then the Justice Douglas, who wrote that judgment, said that see, the Bill of Rights, by the Fifth Amendment of American Constitution, the Bill of Rights was added, that is recognition of fundamental rights. Then the Bill of Rights is protecting the individuals into all aspects, their property, life, and liberty. And when this Bill of Rights is protecting the individuals, then in that very Bill of Rights, you will find the rights, including the right like privacy, in the periphery or the penumbra of periphery of the Bill of Rights. Similarly, in our Indian Constitution, this very with application of this very due process, the Supreme Court has declared that right to privacy is very fundamental part of Article 21, liberty, life, and equality, etc. And that is how in Puttaswamy case we see that now it has been held, and as a result of that, subsequently we see that even adultery, the adultery or even 377 have been declared unconstitutional, because they are intrusion into the privacy of the citizens. So this is the effect of the reading test of reasonableness into Article 14 and then making Article 14 as a part of Article 18. So making this golden triangle. That means, in short, the due process which was excluded was invoked, and first it was made applicable to life and personal liberty. But when Article 19 was read into Article 14, that is the test of Article 19, that is test of reasonableness, was read into Article 14. This Article 19 and 14 became one part, and when Article 14 was added to Article 41, so the due process is completely now made applicable to all the fundamental rights. And there are so many such cases which find today that the laws are challenged on various grounds, and then court is having fundamental duty, duty to examine the validity or the virus of such acts, and while doing so, it has to apply the principle of this golden triangle. So, dear friends, with this, I would like to stop here, and let us now discuss, or any of you may have questions, queries on any of these aspects. Let me know. I would like to also try to answer. Thank you.
Panchalji, this penumbra peripheral term you use.
Yeah.
Yes. Penumbra. Can you explain this? Because it is a new. I come across with the term, but I don't know where to use, how to.
Okay.
Use and
so
in the sense.
Okay. See, actually, these are the words actually used by Justice Douglas. And to explain this, I would like to give an example of our Article 21 being expanded by day by day. Okay. Article 21 speaks only of right to life. But in Article 21, we have found so many other rights. Okay. We say that right to life does not mean an animal existence. Right to life means all that goes along with the life. That means education is also required to live life like a human being. So right to life means a dignified human life. Then similarly we see speedy justice is a right to life. Speedy trial, fair trial is a right to life. Clean water is a right to life. So many other rights we have read into Article 21. So this term life, we say this term life, or the words used into Article 21 are pregnant words. So they can deliver what is required according to need of time. So Life means everything that is required to actually live the life. So we have read several such rights which we call unenumerated rights into our constitution. That means when we have used the word life into Article 21, we have actually meant so many rights which are required to live the life, and that is called, we have kept those things into penumbra of the peripheries of Article 21. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That means they are there, though we may not have expressly said so, but they are there, because if you exclude them, then your life will mean nothing.
Okay.
So similarly, when we exclude privacy from our life, then our life, our liberty, our individual liberty, personal liberty will become meaningless. And in today's scenario, privacy is one of the most important fundamental rights. Like any other life, it is most day by day it is becoming more important.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else has any view or any question? मेरे सर काही क्वेश्चन वगैरे?
नाही सर, काही नाही आहे.
Okay.
Today I came to know that the importance of the adultery and the privacy.
Yeah.
Yes, we are used somewhere in one case in High Court also.
Yes. We have used this Puttaswamy's case.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is very famous case, very important case.
Yes, Puttaswamy's case.
Yes. Meeting चला. हाँ. अच्छा, Vinod.
Yes.
I think now there is no question, so we'd like to close here for the day.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sure.
है ना?
Yes. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
no
sir.
problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night all.
Yes, sir.